There we go. And then I'm going to go on Facebook and share it. So you'll see me looking down, looking to the side. That's me looking at my different devices, just making sure that people are tuning in. Anybody that comments, I'll post it up so you guys can see it. And let's see, we're live. We have nobody on right now. So I also told Eugene that this records. So once it does record, I'm going to post it and share it with you guys if you guys want to share it with anyone. And that's you guys have the option of doing that. All right, we got 2 people. All right, what's up, everybody? It's DJ Enigma, Modern Sound DJs. Wow, I almost said my old company. Evolving Events NYC. I'm doing this new thing called Tuesday Talks. We're on episode 4, so thanks to everyone that's tuned in. Brian, what's up, bro? Brian is a MC that I work with a lot. I might be hiring him full time, so we'll talk about that soon. But I'm here live with Eugene and Sam. Eugene and Sam are really good friends of mine who are in the real estate market. Quick story on how I met them. Eugene was my real estate agent. You guys saw that I posted my beautiful house that I was able to get into. It was my first house. Eugene actually stepped in for someone else. We were looking for someone else. I think he was on vacation. And this was the family guy that everyone in my wife's family used. But he wasn't, he was away. Eugene stepped in quickly. He didn't even miss a beat. And we were, I think on the first day, we saw like maybe 5 houses or something like that. And he was like on the ball. So I was really excited because where I come from, you know, getting a house is something that you don't really talk about. It's just, you know, surviving. So I really appreciated that experience. And Eugene was dope about everything. He kept us informed. He even told us if he didn't think it was the right fit for us, which is what I like. I like that, you know, that he gave us the opinion. He wasn't really after the money. He wanted us to really enjoy the experience, which was cool. Sam was a similar experience. Eugene or somebody from Eugene's company, real estate agency, referred us to a guy. Let's just say he wasn't a good fit. And Sam stepped in and immediately I liked him. I liked his personality, down to earth. Anybody that knows me is I like to work with people that, you know, are really down to earth and cool, easy to talk to. So fast forward to today, I was thinking about the most interesting thing that came to my mind during this entire ordeal that we're going through was real estate. You guys saw that we found a house. We bought a house. I'm really lucky to say that I found a house and bought one and closed on a house during this whole entire situation. And that was largely in part to Eugene and Sam. So thank you guys for stepping in and helping me out. I know I had some issues on the background. We won't get into that. But it took us like a year and change to finally close on a house and get into the house that we're in.
So congrats on that. I'm glad that we got you into there. I think you're very undervaluing Eugene over there, the guy with the beautiful beard. Right. So I agree with what you said about him. He's very modest, but he's one of the best, especially on Staten Island. So I've had many clients with similar experiences as yours. So I'm glad to hear that, you know, it's another one in the books for him doing the right thing on everything. And I'm glad we got you into that home, man. So congratulations. I see the wall in the back looking beautiful. I saw you painting it yourself.
Yeah. We did a ton of work. It seems like a long ways, but we've only been here since June. Still things coming up.
Enjoy, man. Many years.
Thank you. So I really like to start this usually by giving people the chance to introduce themselves and say what they do and what they how they've gotten to where they've gotten. So like, I don't know if you guys want to, like, in a short story, tell us how you got to where you are and what you do. That'd be cool.
Sam, if you don't mind if I go first.
Sure.
Awesome. So thank you guys for the introduction, and it was absolutely my pleasure helping you and your wife and your beautiful 2 kids. I know you just got a newborn. Congratulations on the house. I saw the before and after pictures. Totally amazing. I love it. I want to come over. So actually, I've only been doing real estate since 2017. This is going into my 4th year. I actually was a massage therapist for 6 years. So I've always been in the customer service industry since 23. So I've been doing this for a while. I've always been around people, always want to see people happy, always trying to do my best to make their lives easier, either physically, what I did with my massage therapy career, or now with real estate, which I absolutely love. I learned so many things in just 3.5 years. I never thought I would be a real estate agent, but to make a long story short, I'm absolutely loving it. There's challenges every single day, which I feel make me a better person. And we have such a tremendous team at Homes R Us Real Estate. That's where I work. We're located at 307 Sand Lane. We work around the whole borough, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I had so much fun. My brokers, Gary and Joe, they're really like brothers, and I consider Homes R Us my second family, honestly. So yeah, not just financially, real estate has really made me into a better person, where I become a tougher person, teaches you negotiation skills, obviously, and I feel like all of life, to some extent, is all negotiation. It taught me how to be better in relationships, how to listen, how to be more patient, which I know Sam can agree with me. Mortgages, and Sam, thank you. Obviously, we've had at least 10 deals in the past 3 years together, and
I think we have 10 deals in the past 3 weeks together.
The market is crazy right now, so you always do a great job. So that's basically about me. Obviously, in the beginning, I've had my ups and downs, but the past couple of years have been, just been going up, 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 and it's all a team effort. And ultimately, it's going to come down to me, but it's a team effort. And when you have lenders, attorneys, and inspectors who are all on the same page, and your clients really appreciate what you do, it just makes my life so much easier, and I really feel like I'm making a difference when somebody's sorry, I got a phone call, when somebody's like smiling at the closing table, and that's really the most important thing for me. So I plan to do this for a very long time. I don't see myself going back anywhere, doing anything else, and yeah, that's about it.
So we have a few comments before we move on to Sam. Suli says, can you recommend a good massage therapist?
I think the answer to that is not anymore. Not anymore.
I actually still am technically certified until this December, and then my license expires.
There you go, Suli.
I still have my massage table, so if anybody wants a massage, for sure.
Eugene, right there, all day. Anywhere you can make $1 right now.
And then Sharianne asked which brokerage. It's Homes R Us Realty, right?
Yes, I work for Homes R Us Real Estate, 307 Sand Lane. Eric, obviously, you can give them my phone number, or I can chat. I can type it in somewhere later on.
All right, cool. Yeah, we can put it in the chat. We'll get back to that. I want to switch over to Sam. Now, Sam, for me, what was different for me is I didn't know the difference between the first guy that Eugene recommended and you. So you're a mortgage broker. Well, first, let's talk about your story and how you got to where you are. And then we'll talk about the difference between what you do and the first guy that Eugene recommended.
For sure. So I am a mortgage broker. I've been in financial services for about almost 15 years at this point. I just believe in one thing, and it's just customer service, right? It's all got to be about the customer. I think of myself more as a relationship manager. The reason that I guess we had a good connection in mortgages is because I believe this was your first time purchasing. So the entire process was very new to you. And I always think when I work with a first-time home buyer, I always remember how it felt the first time I purchased my own home. And you have this crazy mix of emotions. It's, we're nervous, we're scared, we're excited, we're antsy, we don't know what's going on. And I always take that into consideration. So what I try to do is I try to make everything very simple and easy to understand. And I feel like when you're working with real people, or your client can understand that you're a real person, that you feel for them, you understand what they're going through, it just makes the transaction very straightforward, very easy to work with. Obviously, there's going to be hiccups along the way. Obviously, things may take a little bit longer than expected, but I just find the mortgage world really fulfilling. I love having happy clients like yourself. Thank you for the constant referrals and the constant compliments. That's really what I enjoy the most about it. And what I enjoy about this side of the financial services world is that people come to you, they ask you for help, and you're really literally able to make that American dream come true for them. So I've been doing mortgages. I'm a broker. We'll get into the difference between a broker and a banker in a little bit. But that's what it is, man. I've been through every avenue of financial services, financial advising. I worked on the trading floor. I did the business lending side, and mortgages just seems to be the most rewarding. I really love getting people into their homes, especially into that first home. So Sam Rizhikov, mortgage broker.
Dope. So while we're on the subject, I know, we do have a few questions before we move forward. somebody asked if you both are from Staten Island.
Good question. So I do live in Staten Island. I'm actually probably the biggest representative of Staten Island. I'm like Staten Island all the way. My office is in Brooklyn, but only in Bay Ridge. So I'm like 5 minutes from the bridge. But
no.
yes, I've been in Staten Island for over 20 years now, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. I love it over there.
Yeah, I have lived on Staten Island since 2000. I lived in Oakwood, then moved around, and now I'm here. I'm still here, living in New Dorp. Absolutely love it, and I plan to live here for quite some time.
If you're asking me, I'm not from Staten Island. I'm from the Bronx. I moved to Brooklyn chasing a girl. Luckily, we got married, and we decided to move 2 years ago, actually, and we finally closed on a house. When was it? In June, I think, or May. We moved in June. We closed in May, which was cool. So, yeah, thank you for your questions. Any other questions? Definitely put it in the chat. So I want to just kind of leap forward to that conversation about the difference between a mortgage broker and a banker. For those of you that don't know, I know I didn't know, but it was great to find out because it was really helpful in the long run.
Got it. So great question. So a mortgage banker is basically somebody that represents one specific lender. And what happens is when you work with a mortgage banker, you go there and they have a couple of products, 3, 4, 5 different products that they're going to find the best one out of those 5 that fits you as the borrower. Benefit of working with a mortgage broker is that we have multiple lenders. So number one, you come to us with a problem and we could find the solution that is, I guess, more directly tailored to your need. It doesn't have to be with one specific bank. It doesn't have to be one specific product. We have access to such an array of different options that we're going to, I guess, kind of look through every option that we have and find the best one for you. What's great about it is that we also represent you as the borrower. When you work with a mortgage banker, that person represents the bank. They're usually sitting in an office or they usually come along with that bank's name. When you work with us, we represent you. Personally, I'm not a fan of banks. I think they make the process way more difficult than it needs to be. So when you decide to work with a mortgage broker, we work with you, we represent you, and ultimately, I don't care what bank we go to. I just want to get you the best rate and the best overall deal with the lowest closing costs, and obviously help you take on a lot of that stress in the process.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. I think I was unsure of the process. Everyone's always saying going with a big bank, Wells Fargo or something like that. When you buy your first home or when you buy a home in general, you kind of talked me out of that. You kind of was like, well, we don't necessarily have to go with a Wells Fargo. If they're not giving you the best rate, then I'm not going to go with Wells Fargo. If they are, then hey, more power to you. But I didn't know the difference, and I'm glad that I did get that opportunity, because if I would have went with the first guy, I think he was with a bank, right, Eugene?
He was a banker, yes.
Yeah, so that would have been locked me into that one bank's rates,
Right.
which would have been kind of like a trap in a way, because I wouldn't have known any better.
Right. What a lot of people actually don't realize is that there are a lot of mortgage banks that don't have a retail side. So you may not actually be able to walk into a branch. You may not actually be able to, ever see them or know about them. But some of these banks are doing hundreds of billions of dollars a year in mortgages themselves. And we tend to kind of ignore it, especially living in New York, where we know we could walk down the street and walk by 5 banks on every block. Yep. We tend to forget or not realize that there are companies out there that solely do mortgages. There are companies out there that actually won't even take a client directly to help them with a mortgage. They're going to direct you to the nearest broker. So we just have a lot of options, again, that may be better fitted for a specific scenario.
Yeah, and there are some banks that just aren't like brick and mortar that you can walk past either. So that's good to know. I mean, for anyone watching, that's definitely something if it's your first home, and we have a question about advice on purchasing the first home. We'll get to that in a second.
Sure.
But I want to switch over to the whole scenario that we are in now. COVID-19 and how that changed the market for the better or for the worse. I'll start with Eugene. Like, when did you notice the difference and what the changes that were happening? How did you guys pivot from that after like everything hit?
Of course. So obviously COVID hit us about mid-March. We felt it right away. So the market, we couldn't show anything physically. So the only way we could show houses was virtually. And obviously no one's buying a house through a video. You have to come in the house, you have to feel it, You have to possibly come a second time, show the parents, and that just wasn't happening. So our sales really plummeted, and I think not just us at Homes R Us. I think the whole, not just the state, like everywhere else. So we definitely felt it, not just financially, but it was also mentally draining, just because like we really couldn't do work our craft. We couldn't show houses. So we did the best we could. We still made sales here and there. The rental market was still pretty strong, so I did my best there. I rented out in the span of about 3 months, maybe 15 rentals I did. Again, all of this was on virtually, so the sales definitely went down. But since we got out of this, around June 22nd, that's when realtors were able to come back. It was crazy. All of us thought it was going to be a seller's market. We didn't know how long it was going to be for, because people are starting to get jobs back. The rates are low. And all of a sudden, boom, 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 people are looking for houses. Let's get the show on the road. Like, I've been cooped up for 3 months. I need something, before school starts. So,
Right.
And all of a sudden, the market just blew up. And right now, it's a seller's market. It's a very good market right now. And who knows how long this will last. I think the contributing factors of this market right now are the low rates. I have some clients getting below 3%, which is unprecedented. I think this is the lowest, one of the lowest rates in history.
I should have waited.
I'm sure we can add to that later on. Also, a lot of people are moving out of Staten Island and moving to Jersey. So there's a lot more listings on the market. Our inventory is still not that high, but we're getting there. A lot of buyers out there leaving Brooklyn and coming to Staten Island as well. So I think the rates being low, people moving from Brooklyn, and the fact that people are just ready to go after being cooped up for a couple of months, they're ready to go and buy. And the rental market is amazing. I do rentals as well, and the rental market is very strong right now. Sellers are selling. It's good for everyone right now. So we adjusted very well. I can say with confidence that we at Homes R Us, me, Joe, Gary, my entire team, Christian, Igor, and not just our team, the whole office are doing fantastic. We're breaking records, and not to brag, I'm not the one to brag, but we are really doing tremendously well. And we definitely rebounded, so we're making up for it, for sure.
And do you think COVID fed into that? You think it's the reason why you guys are doing really well? I mean, obviously it plays a part.
I think that's one part of it. I think more people are getting their jobs back, so they can see they're more confident to buy, because they see, hey, I got my job back, I'm saving up more. And again, the rate, going back to the rates, it's very, very important. If right before COVID it was 3.5 and now it's 2.7 or 2.8, you're saving a couple $100 a month, which can make a huge difference monthly. So yeah, COVID messed everything up. Hopefully it gets better and better, but who knows? We'll see.
And what is the process longer now, or shorter, or the same as it was before COVID?
Personally, with my deals, some are still about the same. Some we have some hiccups, but it looks like ultimately we're going to get them closed. Obviously, I would expect not just with us, around the whole state and around for deals to slow down because banks are still backed up, but nothing crazy. If a typical deal took 2 or 3 months, it's about the same, or maybe less than.
Hold on, there's some feedback. Is anyone covering their mic?
Nope.
Is that me? Let me see.
It could be me. I'm gonna hop out and hop back in.
Okay. It might be me. Well, I guess I'll ask my next question. My next question was gonna be, well, I guess I do need Sam for that. But in terms of, like you mentioned it being a seller's market, how does that differ from it being a buyer's market?
So in the seller's market, typically the sellers have the leverage. They can list their property for a little higher, and that can work towards their advantage, and they can be confident that their market will sell relatively quick. And it looks like it's going to be a seller's market for the near future. We don't know how long. Anything can change, not week to week, but I would say month to month. It could be a totally different market in November or September. But right now, it's a seller's market for sure. Properties are not staying in the market typically longer than 30 days right now. They're going pretty quick. In the buyer's market, it's different because we have much more inventory in the market. So there's a lot more options for buyers, so they can look around longer. So in the seller's market, where a buyer can look around 5, 6 houses, make a decision on that 7th house or that 6th house. In the buyer's market, typically we will show them 15 or 20 houses because there's so many more options to look at. So right now it's not as good as 2017 or 2018, which was the peak of the market, but it's definitely not like 2008, 2009. It's a very healthy market right now. So who knows how long that will last? Any agent that tells you otherwise, like I definitely know when, definitely in September it's going to turn into a buyer's market. They're lying to you. So no one really knows. So we'll have to see. It's going to depend on the job numbers. The rates. What happens in November. It really depends right now on so many different things. And real estate is a different animal. So it's crazy. That's why I love it.
That's interesting. It's interesting to see what's happening because it's really like territory that no one's ever been in. So it's like 1 minute it could be one way, the next minute it could just completely do a 180.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. And Sam, I wanted to pose the same question to you. When did you notice things changing, and how did it affect you as soon as COVID hit? What was the first thing you noticed?
Right. So I guess COVID obviously had some negative impacts on us as well on the mortgage side. However, as Eugene mentioned, I mean, the interest rates are at historical lows. So although people may have been losing jobs, I think our view on all of that, especially being in New York, is there's still a lot of people that were still in a good financial situation. They may have been working from home, but they still had their job. They were still earning full pay. So the refi boom kind of struck in the beginning of COVID as well. We did a ton of refinances. The banks definitely made it a little bit more difficult to get some of those loans approved. There's some overlays on those guidelines. Self-employed borrowers have a lot of new hurdles to jump over that we never anticipated before. But again, the rates remain historically low. They've been coming down pretty much from February to March to April to May to June. They went up a little bit in July and August. But, the refinancing boom hit, and it really hasn't slowed down yet. The biggest challenge that we had was that a lot of people were going on unemployment, or they were getting furloughed. People started getting nervous about not being able to make their payments, so they did take advantage of the forbearance as soon as the government kind of came out and allowed them to do so. And those are all things that are going to hold us back because, the bank kind of looks at that as instability. And of course, unless you're getting your full paycheck, the bank isn't going to lend you a mortgage. But we've been back since then. As Eugene mentioned, the real estate market just continued to boom after that. Probably the last 2 months, I'll be honest, we've been working, I don't know, maybe 15, 16, 18-hour days just trying to get all our loans. And the banks have taken on more loans than they can process right now. Volume is crazy, so deals are taking a little bit longer than we would like them to, but ultimately everything's getting done. And it's just, I think in the real estate side, it's, I guess maybe even a little scary at how fast everything is moving, because ultimately it has to slow down. I agree with Eugene, kind of. I think in September, some of this volume may slow down when kids start going back to school, and if they go back to school. So there'll be, different inventory, especially available on Staten Island. But I think the mortgage rates are going to remain low, at least until the election's out in November. That seems to be the common consensus. So again, if you're still interested in refining, or you think your rate might be a little bit higher than it should be, this is the perfect time to take advantage of it while you still have a shot. A lot of people call and they always ask, hey, do you think the rates are going to go down? We don't know where the rates are going to go, but there's a much, much greater chance for them to go higher than they're going to go lower. So take advantage of it while you can. And, call your mortgage broker, call me, call somebody else, see what options are available to you and take advantage of it, because we may never see these rates again.
I think that's the advice you gave me, was we should lock this in now because you don't know which way it's going to go. Right. I know we got, a pretty good deal, a pretty good rate for what it was and for the time. Everyone keeps using these terms, the term unprecedented times. We just didn't know what we were going to do, but we just decided to go ahead and try. We had faith in you and Eugene when we decided to lock it in, and lo and behold, I was actually surprised when Eugene was like, they accepted your offer, and I was like, what? Which brings me to my next point. I was in an interesting kind of situation with the sellers of my house, that they were moving to Florida. Now we know Florida right now is pretty much the epicenter of the resurgence of COVID-19. It's just really, really bad down there. how has that affected you guys? Have you guys dealt with any other sellers or situations like that where the buyer you guys were representing were like was stuck in their place because they were waiting on the seller? Or do you guys have any other interesting stories around COVID-19 in general? That was just my story, but you know, is there anything that presented itself to you guys that was like out of the ordinary than from what you're used to?
I wish I had an interesting story. Nothing that I can think of where it totally delayed a deal longer than it was supposed to. Um, Nothing that comes to mind. I mean, if Sam, you have anything while I think,
Yep.
I really.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges was just the uncertainty. So, you know, I've had clients that backed out of deals because they got nervous, and that's understandable. You know, without, you know, being certain that your job is going to be there in 6 months, it's kind of hard to take on that new debt, even though it's your dream home. We've seen a lot of deals kind of die or slow down because people did lose their jobs or they did hit unemployment. And, you know, it just kind of obviously puts a stagger on things. People are super excited in the beginning of the process. And then, you know, once they kind of sign an application or do their inspection or get their appraisal done, it starts to kind of hit you. And it's kind of like, oh my God, like, okay, now I'm going to have a bigger payment to expect every month.
Yep.
And, you know, if you're seeing your colleagues, you know, getting laid off, or you're seeing your job slow down, business slowing down in general, especially for self-employed borrowers, you kind of start to second guess everything that you've been doing up to that point. Look, all we could do is kind of walk you through that scenario. If you qualify for it, if you're still in a good position, we were moving forward. If anybody was, you know, not able to support their income or show pay stubs to the bank was obviously moving away from those loans or declining them anyway. So we did see a lot of situations that we just never expected. There was a situation that I dealt with where my buyer was still, you know, fully employed, but my buyer was also a seller at the same time, and he was in a situation where the person buying his house got all the way to the finish line and lost their job about 2 weeks before closing.
Oh, wow.
So that obviously means they can't sell their house, which means they don't get the funds that they need to buy their next home. And it kind of starts to, you know, trickle down. And who knows what happened to the person that was selling that home to them, you know. So that was kind of the situations that we dealt with that weren't necessarily so pleasant. But I'm happy to say that a lot of those people have returned back to work, and it was just temporary. And, you know, we're still in the process of getting some of those deals closed out, which is great. But I think that's the biggest challenge, just the unemployment and the lack of pay or the lack of jobs available.
One story I can think of right now, we had a deal back in December, late November or early December. My buyer was buying a condo in the Lauderette Hills over there by the mall, very beautiful unit. And the sellers there were moving to Delaware. And we were in the process. We were like a 90 to 120 day close. My buyer was okay with it. Everything was going smooth. And the sellers were planning on moving into their new house based on our plans. So literally 2 weeks before, we already had the closing date scheduled, actually, or maybe it was like a week or two away from closing. And my buyer lost his job, and that kind of screwed things up. This was like early to mid-March when he lost his job, and it was terrible. I mean, that was the only deal I had during COVID that actually died. Like, it was literally the beginning of COVID. So that messed up the whole, you know, the sellers couldn't get the house, and obviously my buyer couldn't get the house. So I don't know if that property is still on the market that my buyer was looking at, but that's one story I can definitely think of.
What I'll tell you, sorry, Eric, to interrupt. So what I also noticed is post-COVID, once we kind of, you know, things started to normalize and stabilize a little bit, I did start receiving a lot of calls, which kind of made me laugh. And it was basically like, hey, I can't be with my wife and kids in the apartment anymore. Like, you got to help me with the house. And, you know, I've started to notice a lot of people are moving out of the city because they have the opportunity for the first time ever to work from home. So they don't have to be very close to their job anymore. Now they have the opportunity to move into the suburbs. They have the opportunity to move into, you know, Jersey or Westchester, wherever it is, close enough to the city where, you know, they have a 45-minute, maybe an hour ride if they need it, but further away where they don't have to pay $3,000, $7,000 for rent. And Staten Island seems to be that perfect answer for it, because we do have a lot of outlets that can get you to the city relatively quickly. We have the express buses that a lot of people don't realize we have all over Staten Island, and a lot of different routes for them. We do have the ferry that gets you right into downtown, right by Wall Street in Manhattan. So Staten Island became a great place, because now for a lot of times, maybe what you're paying for that small apartment, 1 or 2 bedroom, you could have a 3-bedroom townhouse. I mean, Eugene, you see that all the time. People moving out of Brooklyn, a small apartment, people moving out of Manhattan in a small apartment. Now they have a backyard. The kids have somewhere to play with. You have a totally separate room from your wife when you don't want to be with her. You don't have to be bothered by the kids if you're working from home. And it's a totally different life. And a lot of people call me and they're like, listen, you got to get me out of this house. I don't care what it costs. Just get me into a house. Like right now, I can't be with my kids in this apartment anymore. But again, that just goes to say what I mentioned earlier. I think Staten Island's an amazing place for that. You have something reasonably affordable, and you pretty much get everything you could want.
That's what it was for me. Well, basically, they had me at parking spot. Anyone that lives in Brooklyn knows parking is like a nightmare, and everyone knows that. I get home from these events super late at night, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I'm circling and circling. I think one time it took me 3 hours to find parking, and I just sat in my car. I just at like an hour and a half in, I just double parked in front of my house, and I took a nap. And then I woke up and I started circling again.
So Staten Island has so much parking. Eugene actually takes up 3 spots at a time when he's at the plazas. He parks diagonally.
I see that. My next door neighbor across the street, he parks right in the middle, and it's not like the way I'm used to in Brooklyn, where it's like bumper to bumper. They just take up the whole space. But I know, for me, that's what it was, that I really wanted more space. I actually have this nice dining room now. That's my office for now until we set up my home office. We just bought a table that we're going to set up. But that's pretty much what it was for me, because I was working from I had 2 places that everyone on the Zoom calls would see, and that would be either my bed or my little corner on the couch. That's where I was in Brooklyn. But when I moved here, it kind of upgraded my space, and even my Zoom parties too. This is my Zoom party room, and I'm able to light it up and make it look good. So that definitely that hit home when you mentioned that, because that's exactly what it was for me. But Suli was more, she had the list of everything she needed. I was just like, get me a parking spot and I'm good. So I'm enjoying it so far. Staten Island is actually what I refer to as the forgotten borough. I don't want to make it seem like I'm like advertising Staten Island for those of you that are not from Staten Island, but it's more about real estate and the mortgage market, mortgages right now and what you can do. And I'm just going to move to the first question, because now that we know about COVID-19 and how it affects you guys, what kind of advice would you give to someone during this time that's looking to purchase their first home? Sure.
Again, goes without saying, I think the most important thing is just to understand the numbers. So it's important that somebody reaches out to myself or, a mortgage broker that they trust. Get the numbers. Let somebody walk you through the closing costs. Let somebody walk you through what your monthly payments are going to be. And that'll help you basically understand what you should be looking for and where you should be looking. I think that's the most important thing. Don't go on Zillow and start looking for a bunch of different houses until you understand what it's going to cost you. Because I promise you, Eugene, you're going to tell your clients the same thing. If you start looking at $700,000 houses, they're going to be much nicer than $500,000 houses. They're going to be much nicer than $300,000 houses. And, human instinct is we want something bigger, we want something better, we want something more expensive. Figure out what you're comfortable paying every month, and then figure out where you should be looking. And then you're going to call Eugene. Eugene's going to help you see those houses, and you'll see if it's a good fit for you. But definitely talk to a professional, get the numbers, and just get an understanding of what is it going to cost you. Mortgages are pretty simple, right? They're looking for 3 things. What is it going to cost you every month? Can you afford to make that payment? Do you have the assets for the down payment and to cover your closing costs? And then obviously we're going to take a look at your credit report. So very simple. Understand those numbers, and then you're going to be comfortable. Nothing to be nervous about. If the numbers make sense, the numbers are going to make sense for you.
Okay. Eugene, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think with first-time homebuyers, I think it's a lot of people get scared when they look at the numbers and they're like, oh my God, that $200 a month difference is so big for me. I mean, for some people it is, but you got to think about it over a 30-year plan, and not just financially. I think you have to be mentally ready, depending on your family structure. what's going on with your family, where you see yourself in a year, or where you see yourself just in the near future. Maybe you can rent for a year and then buy. So first, you have to be mentally ready to know that you can afford a house, and just have the best for your family. I mean, some people love renting for their entire life. Some people just want to buy and build equity. And the most important thing I feel with first-time homebuyers, they're like just really scared. They keep looking at houses, and I can feel that they're just not ready. They have the money, but they're just not mentally there. So, I would love to show people as many houses as they want. They just gotta be sure, and I'll be happy to hold their hand and refer them to Sam and Felix, Sam's partner. But mentally, you got to be mentally ready to make sure, because houses are not rentals. You got to maintain the house. Sometimes you're gonna have a big backyard. You have to maintain that. So definitely comes with its responsibilities for sure.
I think one other thing that everybody should kind of understand is, if you think that you are ready or you want to explore the options of being ready, there are programs out there where a lot of people don't realize you may not need to put 20% down, which seems to be the common notion. You could get into a house with as little as 3.5%, 5% down sometimes. So
that was going to be my next question.
If it's something that you're interested in exploring, just talk to a professional. And again, I always recommend the mortgage broker. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody you're comfortable with, because you need to understand that there are programs out there that may fit your specific situation today. So don't listen to your neighbor. Don't listen to your mechanic. Talk to a professional and see what's available to you. And again, talk to a broker who may have multiple options for you.
And you touched a little bit upon going on Zillow and all of these apps that they have. I think either you or Eugene brought it to my attention, because I'm just like, oh, look at this house, it's nice, and you're like, it's not accurate. You can't go based on what you see there. One thing I did learn is that it's not just the number that you see in front of you. There's also other things involved, like in the closing costs. You have to consider so many things. When your mortgage, you can get your number for your mortgage, but that's not including things like HOA fees and all the other fees that you have to pay when you own a home. Do you want to touch a little bit on that, as like things to look out for when you're buying your first home, and things that people really don't realize until they finally see their numbers?
Sure. So a lot of people call me, especially when they maybe found the house that they like, or they're trying to get the accurate numbers for a house that they like. They call and they always go, Sam, what's the best interest rate that you can offer? What I always recommend is people have to understand that you have to ask the question correctly. I can offer you essentially any interest rate that you want, because the bank will let you have whatever interest rate you want if you're willing to pay for it. The bank will always let you put more money up front to get a lower rate in exchange. If you want to compare, interest rates properly, I think it's important that you understand that closing costs play a very big factor in what that actual interest rate is. A lot of people go, hey, what's the best interest rate because somebody quoted me this? Okay, but what are the closing costs associated with that? So something to be really careful with is, when you're getting a quote for interest rates, definitely take the opportunity to shop around. I think it's very important that you are comfortable with who you're working with, what lender you ultimately end up going with, and what rate you're with. But you have to understand that there are other things that go into that rate other than just a random number. So make sure that anytime somebody quotes you an interest rate, that they accompany it with a breakdown of your closing costs. So you know if that's something that you're actually getting or something that you're just buying or paying the bank for.
Right. That makes sense. And Eugene, I'll pose a similar question to you, like things that people normally don't consider when they're getting their first house. What advice do you have for them, things to look out for? Because I know people are like, I just want to buy a house, and they don't consider a lot of things like renovation costs or things that the house may need, and things you need to look out for when you're doing like your inspection. Like I recently had something that popped up that I didn't see in the inspection. What advice would you give to people like that?
Well, number one, I think when somebody's looking for a house, they should go into it knowing their commute. And I feel like when people, I work with clients all the time, like, Eugene, can we see this house? It's amazing. It's so beautiful. They show me a house in Tottenville, but they work in Brooklyn. And I'm telling them, you guys realize Monday through Friday, you're going to be sitting in traffic for 2.5 hours. Or to get from Tottenville to Midtown Manhattan is going to take you over 2 hours. You're going to be sitting in traffic just on Staten Island for probably an hour until you get to even downtown Manhattan, if you're lucky. So commute is number one. You have to always, that's number one. Location is number one. Number two, yes, the maintenance costs. Don't just look at the number, how much the house is listed at. Look at what you're going to need to do with the house. It's very important to understand what you need and what you want. So the location is number one because you can never change the location of a house, and its curb appeal, where it's located on the block, specifically where, if it's a corner unit or it's a middle unit. Anything else inside the house you can always change. So a lot of people kind of underestimate how much the work is going to be, or sometimes they overestimate it, and that kind of scares them to be like, yeah, this is going to be so much work. This is going to be $100,000 worth of work, and in reality, it's only like 30 or 40,000. They just blow it up, and then they get scared, and then we just move on. So the overestimating of the renovations, for sure. Location, people don't take into account. We see so many houses, and they're like, oh my God, I can't do this drive from Brooklyn just to see this house. You know what? Let's look closer to the bridge. So those are the top two things. Definitely commute, what it takes to buy a not so good house, a really good house. Obviously, you're going to pay a premium if a house is renovated. And obviously, you got to know your neighborhood, your schools, where that house is located. Obviously, we as realtors, we can't really go into that too much. But yeah, those are the two major things you have to really think about. And I can't stress enough the commute. The commute is very, very important. You always have to take traffic into account.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things me and Suli talked about, is just how long would it take. It's going to take us a little longer, but I think somebody shined down from us. I mean, not that COVID was a blessing, but I haven't had to commute yet, so I don't really know what that's going to be like. But I'm almost certain I'm just going to be taking the express bus. So even if I'm sitting in traffic, I'm one of those people that I have my face buried in an iPad while I'm on the bus, or if I have my laptop, I'm on my laptop. So it won't bother me too much, but definitely commute was something that we thought about.
Right. From my side, I think one of the most important questions that I ask somebody when we speak or when I'm trying to give information is, think about what is your comfort zone in monthly payments. And a lot of times people, try to stretch that number or push that number as high as they want to because maybe they found something that they fell in love with or whatever it is. And I always bring it back to it. I have the conversation with a lot of my clients. When we first spoke, you told me your comfort zone was XYZ, right? If now we're moving into ABC, just consider if you're comfortable with it because that's not what you wanted. A lot of people don't understand that when you purchase a house, especially sometimes you're moving out of a smaller unit or sometimes you're moving out of an apartment, you also have to factor in the added expenses of utilities. Your utilities, heating, air conditioning, gas, water, all of these things are going to be significantly higher than what you're probably used to in a smaller apartment or in a smaller home. And those are things that people don't always factor in. So, I know my utility bill is usually $150. Yeah, maybe in a one-bedroom apartment, now it's going to be $300 or $350. Like, get the information, know your number, talk to your real estate agent. I mean, your real estate agent will always give you an idea of what this house probably averages, what it averages in the summer for utilities, what it averages in the winter for utilities, but stick to that comfort zone. If you kind of set out and you said you're comfortable at, whatever that number is, stick to that number and don't start to veer off of it. Because again, the more you veer off of it, the nicer properties are going to be. Don't put yourself in a situation for the next 30 years where you're going to be struggling or you're going to be uncomfortable or scared or nervous every month.
Right. I actually saw a story on Facebook recently. One of my friends who's also a real estate broker showed a text message. She had a nasty exchange with this lady. And she just was basically saying, just because I'm trying to help you out doesn't mean I have to work with you. But the text exchange was basically the woman was making like $2,900 a month. And she was looking for a property that cost $2,900 a month to maintain. And my friend was basically telling her, like, why would you look for a property that takes your entire paycheck every month? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's when they got into a heated exchange that she didn't want to help her or whatever. But I found that interesting that people don't, account for things like other expenses, like, shopping, if you want to go grocery shopping, if you need to maintain anything else, emergency fund, things like that. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think that's the advice I would give, is just to make sure you're keeping money in your pocket to live. You're going to have a house, but it's important that you don't go house broke. And I'm glad that we didn't do that. But thank you for your advice, guys. I'm going to move on to the next question because we're moving on to 45 minutes. and the attention span these days are a little low. So I want to make sure that I keep people interested. Sharianne asked if you guys, and I want to touch on this a little bit, suburban areas outside of New York City. So I think if I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm understanding correctly, Sam, you're open to working outside of because the mortgage isn't just applied to Staten Island, whereas Eugene is more
Correct.
specific
Correct.
and
So,
knowledgeable.
so I can work in any part of New York State, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, or Florida.
Okay. And then Eugene, because you know the market in Staten Island more, you've seen the houses, you know the neighborhoods, they would work with you specifically for Staten Island and nowhere else unless you were willing to.
Unfortunately, I can't answer that question just because I'm licensed in New York State, so I can work all 5 boroughs. I'm just so focused on Staten Island where that's just very difficult for me to answer, to give you a straight answer.
So my advice there would be to find someone knowledgeable about, the neighborhood that you want to move to. Let's say it's Yonkers, you should find someone that knows Yonkers, et cetera, et cetera. So that way you can actually go with them to see the houses. And like Eugene did for me, he would tell you if this is a neighborhood that's not safe. We saw a few properties that, they look nice, and it's what you'd call a flip, where they took a beat up property, they fixed it up, make it look real nice, but it's in a neighborhood that's just not safe for kids, or it's just not a nice neighborhood. That's something you definitely should consider when you're picking a real estate agent. For a broker like Sam, he can work with you because it's numbers, banks, and banks are all over the place. So that's my answer to that. Next question: what's the best way to find neighborhoods with good schools?
So my answer to that, again, not something you'll probably want to hear, but with realtors, we have a scope of practice that we have to follow. So that's a very common question that comes up from my buyers, like Eugene, I'm from Brooklyn, I'm from Queens. What are the good schools here? Is it in Oakwood? Is it in New Dorp? Is it in New Springville? That's something that's such a great area that we can't really talk about schools because we're kind of like, what's the word for it? We can't come off across as like kind of gearing them to a certain neighborhood. It's something we can't legally do in our scope of practice. So we always say like, you know what, I'm sorry, unfortunately, I can't answer that question for you, but I would tell you to go on Google, look it up on Department of Education, look at the grades of the schools. And those grades, those 1 through 10, they change every single year. You can't really go by that grade. Every year, a school may be 8, the next year it's 6. 1 year it's 8, the next year it's 10. Again, I'm sorry, I can't 100% answer that question. It's something that we just can't as realtors, but I can provide anecdotal information, but I can't just strictly say like, this area has the best schools, you have to go to this area. We just, unfortunately, we can't have people kind of gear people towards a certain direction or a certain neighborhood.
And I don't think that question came up with you and with us. I think it was more you just took us to see the house, and we kind of spoke for the neighborhood kind of spoke for itself.
You can do that. You can do a drive-by. You can talk to the neighbors. You can talk to your other friends who live on Staten Island, their experiences. Obviously, outside of real estate, I know all the neighborhoods. In my personal life, I've been living on Staten Island for 20 years. I know pretty much all the neighborhoods and the schools and everything else, but it's just something I can't. When we're talking real estate terms, I can't go into that information too much.
Okay. Sam, you were going to say something? Sorry.
I was going to say, I think Google, I forgot the website, Eugene, you probably know it better, but it literally gives you the information on all the schools and how they're ranked and how they're rated. Only thing is, again, Eugene's also correct in that it's a little difficult to answer that question because sometimes a school may be good or maybe not good or not highly rated, but may have a good program may have a program that's very high rated, whereas the rest of the school may not be. So I would always recommend do the research and make sure that it fits your specific needs or your specific children.
Exactly.
I think Eric left us here.
He abandoned it.
Yeah.
He'll be back.
Well, Eugene, I love the beard. That's a new addition.
This is a month. Like I'm actually liking it. I like putting the beard oil in.
It's very nice. It's very nice. Yeah. You grew that in about like 3 weeks.
It's about a month. It grows slow. I like it.
Nah, it looks great on you.
Thank you. Who's Eric? But Yeah, if anyone has any other questions, I mean, we can see the questions on the bottom if anyone wants to chime in.
I think on this app, the questions are popping up on the bottom, unless Eric controls them.
Yeah, maybe.
Um,
I'm used to Zoom, but not this program.
yeah, I've never used this software, but
My bad. I'm using this new thing to put more USBs in, and I just moved it. I guess it's not that good. That was my bad. So thanks for that. For the school situation, I haven't even looked that up honestly since we moved here. We were looking at 3K schools for Mason, but we didn't look at that until after we moved here, because Mason was still kind of on the border of too young but approaching 3K age. So I remember we were looking at neighborhoods, and one of the things that I always asked was, "Is this a good neighborhood?" I think Suli was more willing to live in like a rugged neighborhood than I was. But me, my background coming from a rugged neighborhood, I'm just like, not again. So that was something that was important to me. Just that it was a nice, safe neighborhood for my kids to grow up in. And I think being able to come out here to Dreher was a blessing for me. I think that's all the questions. Anybody else have any other questions? Put them in the chat. But I want to thank you guys. You guys, I know you guys are busy with everything going on. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to jump on a call with me and just talk real estate, man. I think this is something that not a lot of people have access to. I learned as I went, but it was really great working with you guys and having you guys give me the insight that I needed and made me feel a lot more comfortable, because it was a scary situation for me. I have another question here. I think we lost Eugene. Oh, there he goes.
Sorry. That's your answer. Text message. Sorry.
That's all right. I know it may vary depending on each individual situation, but what's the typical closing costs you can expect to pay?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Again, the closing costs will vary depending on your location, depending on the type of home. I'm not one to just throw out rough numbers. I'd rather run the actual scenario-specific numbers with you to give you an understanding. Again, they could range anywhere from 3,000 to 300,000, right? So I think it depends what you're looking for. Different property types are going to have different closing costs. Different areas are going to have different types of taxes associated with it, or different escrows. If you're interested in it, again, call me. We'll run through it, and we'll run through a specific scenario for the type of properties and the areas that you're looking at. I think that'll make you more comfortable than me just throwing out a random number.
I think one thing that made me comfortable is knowing that I didn't have to put down 20%. Because at first I was just like, how the hell are we going to come up with 20%? Like, two people in New York City, it's, these days it's not enough, so we were concerned about that. But just knowing that we didn't necessarily have to put 20% down, if we just having that option was good for us. So you also have that option of doing the first time homeowners, where you can put like 3 or 3.5% down, and you'll be in a new home. But there's just other things to consider there, like, PMI, I think, was one of the things that caught me off guard. And just considering things like that. And Sam would definitely walk you through all of that when you decide that you do want to make an offer. On PMI, it's private mortgage insurance, I think.
Correct. So anytime you put less than 20% down, you do have to pay something called mortgage insurance. It's going to work differently depending on what program makes more sense for you. But we could run those numbers and we could run those estimates. The mortgage insurance will basically help supplement the bank's risk. So God forbid, in the event that you foreclose, the bank obviously doesn't have to lose money or as much money. So it gives you the opportunity to put down 3.5%, 5% down and still be able to get into that home without having that full 20% down.
Great. All right, so we're reaching 54 minutes. I want to start wrapping it up. Any last minute advice that you would give to anyone? And you guys can take this opportunity also to put your information and contact info. If you want to tell me, I can put it in the chat for you guys, or how they can reach you if they wanted to, for Eugene, if they wanted to look for a home in Staten Island, and Sam, if they're just on the market for a mortgage. What would you want to say to them?
Sure. So again, Eugene, I work for Homes or Else Real Estate. I can give out my number, 917-831-0129. Most importantly, just make sure the number one thing you should be able to do is know what you want and what you need. Definitely get a pre-approval from a gentleman such as Sam. He's one of the best mortgage brokers and just lenders that I can recommend. I always tell people to definitely shop around two or three different banks, maybe brokers, but you can't go wrong with Sam and his team. His partner Felix, they do an amazing job. I've never had any complaints. So definitely know what you want, what you need, what your goals are for the next couple of years. Know where you want to live, the location, and reach out to a professional like myself if you're looking to buy a house. Again, Homes Are Us Real Estate. We have an amazing team. We're called Richmond First. Yeah, you don't necessarily have to have 20%. A common question actually that comes up with first-time home buyers, I love working with them, is like, so how much down payment do I have to put down to get this house? I'm like, there's really no, you can put down 50, you can put 5%, and it really doesn't matter what bank or what company is doing the loan. It really depends on the individual. If the bank like Chase is a great bank, but you get unlucky with a lender who doesn't know the alphabet, like it doesn't, you're gonna have a rough time. So if there's a mortgage brokerage that no one's ever really heard of, but there's an amazing talent on that team, that individual is gonna close your deal with supreme service. So it really depends on the individual. Don't look at the big bank or the company in just one big picture. Look at the individual who's doing your loan. That's really all I can add. Again, it's been a pleasure with you guys. I actually this was exciting, and this was really fun. I want to do another one of these. And reach out to me whenever.
All right, we can set that up. I appreciate the time, Eugene. I posted the address to Homes Are Us. If you want to leave a number, you can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to share Eugene's number. I don't want to post his number publicly, but just reach out to me or Eugene directly. Eugene's last name is there. I think I'm blocking it.
You can find my reviews there. What we've sold, our team reviews, our stats. I usually wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier. A lot of agents say, call me anytime, but a lot of agents get upset when they take that word seriously, that meaning seriously. But literally, call me at 7 o'clock in the morning. If I'm awake, I'm picking up the phone. If it's midnight and I'm on the computer just browsing, shopping on Amazon, I'm picking up the phone. I don't care. I just want to see people happy. I think that's what the difference between a professional agent and somebody who's just like doing it part-time, which is fun. So
that was totally me. 7 a.m. Yeah, Eugene, how about this property? Can we go see this today?
Again, all I need is my phone. If I'm laying in bed, I got my phone. I'll look it up on the MLS. Let's go. Let's make the appointment. Let's go in 2 hours. That's it.
I'd highly prefer everybody call Eugene at 7 a.m. so he stops calling me at 7 a.m.
Tie him up.
So call me anytime.
Well, we do got one last minute question. If we can touch on it briefly. Can starting a business or buying a car while you are trying to buy a house affect your chances?
So very good question. Yes, we definitely want to be very careful with what we're doing as far as income and as far as credit. So when you're purchasing a home, your credit is going to be extremely important. Buying a car is just going to, number one, hit your credit, potentially lowering it. And number two, it's going to add an additional debt. So depending on, what your debt to income ratios are or what your overall income is versus the expenses that you're taking on, that could play a very major factor in it. Also, you want to make sure that you protect your credit and keep your credit as high as possible, because your credit will affect your interest rates. The higher your credit is, the better the interest rate you're going to receive through the process. Starting a business is a tough question as well. If you're a W-2 employee that's going to start a new business, that can potentially postpone your chances of getting a home, because when you're self-employed, the bank needs to see some sort of stability of income, and they want to usually see at least 2 years of history so that they know that income will continue. When you're starting a business, of course, we're not going to have the opportunity to show the bank 2 years of income documentation, so your chances are probably going to be close to none. I would say if you're working a W-2 job and you're thinking of doing a business, or you have an established business that's been doing well, you're trying to do something new, hold off until you're done with the mortgage process. And again, protect that credit as much as you can. Don't open credit cards. Don't run your credit. Also, one more thing is don't do anything with cash. Be careful with any large withdrawals or deposits. The bank is always going to ask you for 30 days of pay stubs, 2 years of W-2s, 2 years of tax returns, and they're going to ask you for 60 days of bank statements. So be careful what you're doing in and out of that account. Be careful what you're doing with your credit. Talk to me, talk to your mortgage broker before you decide to make any changes like that, or take on any additional debt, or deposit any cash.
I know you told me to pay off a few things, and that's what we did, and it helped us get in a better position. So that's something I'd recommend, is to definitely put yourself in the best financial position as possible, at least on paper, so that when you do go through the mortgage process, they're like, this is on paper, this person is somebody I want to lend money to. So that's something definitely to consider as well. And Sam, since we ended with you answering the question, I'll give you the opportunity to put your information out there. How can they reach out to you? How can they, work with you for their future home purchase?
Yeah, for sure. So again, my name is Sam. My number is 718-564-5694. Eric, you got my number. Shoot me a message, call me, anything you want to do. If you're starting the process, let's run some numbers. Let's help you understand where you're going to be, what you can afford, what your payments will be, and what your closing costs will be. And I'll walk you through that process. There's no stupid questions with me. I'm happy to get you, as set up as possible. But I think it's just super important that you understand the information so that there's no surprises later. We don't want any surprises. We want you to be as prepared as possible. Call me. Let's talk about it. Let's get you on the right path. If we're not ready today, we'll prepare you so that you're ready in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is.
All right, awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for taking the time. You guys are actually the longest session I've had so far, but I think it's important because, like I said, this is just information that's just not out there and accessible readily for anyone. So I think this will be really helpful for my audience, and probably could get you some more clients out of this. So it's a win-win. But I appreciate you guys taking the time. Thanks again for all of your help with my house, and I look forward to hearing more stories. Hopefully somebody reaching out to you guys and getting in their first home.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.